Hello, my name is Toby from Artmaster Studio, and today I'm going to be showing you how to paint a 28mm World War II British Infantryman. So let's just get straight into it. I'm going to start off by undercoating the cloth with Vallejo Burnt Umber. This is a really nice triad for World War II British infantry cloth. So I'd like to start out by giving a quick shout out to all our Patreon supporters. It really does help make these videos a reality. If you're interested in Patreon, or if you're not sure what it is, there'll be a link in the description below, and there's a video on our Patreon page describing what it's all about. Alright, so let's get straight into this. So I'm using a Kolinsky Sable 2.0 brush. You can use a larger one if you want, just for the undercoating stage, but I think this one will suffice. Try not to use a smaller brush though, because it might take you a bit longer. But at the same time, don't use a brush that's too knackered or splayed out, because you won't be able to get a neat finish. Even though at this stage it's not that important to be 100% neat, because this is the first colour we're painting. It's still nice to just try and stay as neat as possible, just to save yourself time in the future. So I added a little bit of water to this. You don't have to use any special dilutants or anything. You can dilute with a matte varnish if you like. Sometimes that's nice to get a nice strong dull finish to your colours, and it will also water them down a little bit if they're too thick. So I did actually try to make another video recently of a World War II German SS figure. I recorded the whole thing, but unfortunately one of the files was corrupted, so I lost that tutorial, which is why I haven't uploaded one as soon as I would have liked, especially with our new Patreon campaign that's just launched, so I do apologise for that. Quick note, if you are a Patreon supporter, and if you support, I think it's more than $6 per month, then you'll be entered into a competition to win this very figure. It will of course be based as well as painted, and if you are a winner, we'll send it free of charge to your address. We'll just contact you, probably through Patreon. And there are other reward goals as well, such as more competition entries, and being in with the chance to hang out with me via Google Hangout, so we can talk about painting and perhaps paint together if the internet connection is good enough to actually show that quality. Okay, so that's the jacket and trousers undercoated. Just give it a quick check over, make sure I've not missed anything. No, that looks quite good to me. So if you want to sound off in the comments below and let us know what you're painting, if you're painting anything similar or something completely different even. You know, it's good to get the conversation going. If you've got any questions about anything, I'll try and answer them. So now I'm going to undercoat the wood, and if there is any hair showing, I'm going to use Vallejo German Camo Black Brown for this. I'll try and remember to list all the colours I've used in the description below. Right, so this is just going to be on the butt of the gun and on the main body. And if you're used to painting Napoleonics or anything around that era, you may be used to leaving the top of the barrel exposed, but on the more modern guns like this, you should know that there is wood on top as well. Not all the way down. You can see, I'm not sure if you can see it that well on this particular model, but there is a mechanism there that you want to leave just about 1/3 of it towards the bottom there. You can look up plenty of images in Google or reference books should you need, but for beginners to World War II, that can be an easy thing to overlook. I think he's got a little bit of hair showing around the back there. Just paint that in. Alright, so now I'm going to undercoat the flesh using my new flesh method. This is Vallejo flesh based. It's a Panzer Aces colour, this one. There's 3 different ranges of Vallejo paints. There's model colour, which is more of your historical sort of paint set, but it's kind of an all-round one as well. It's pretty much good for everything. Then you've got Panzer Aces, which is more centred around World War II era. A lot of the colours are named after certain nations' uniforms. You know, for instance, you get a highlight British tank crew, etc. And then there's game colour. Game colour is kind of a more vibrant range that's skewed more towards fantasy. But again, you can use it for historical if you want to more vibrant colours, especially on like Hussar uniforms and stuff. The game colour range is actually quite good for that. So with my old flesh, I used to undercoat in a darker colour, kind of a burnt sienna. I used to use Vallejo Shadows Flesh actually, but now kind of got this new method where I like to start off with the first highlight colour, which is flesh base, paint that on solid, and then when that's dry we'll give it a nice wash with Vallejo Agrax Earthshade, and that will kind of shade in the creases, in the shadows, and give a kind of more of a subtle transition between the highlights, so we can highlight straight over that. So painting over the whole face here, not worrying about the eyes or the lips or anything just yet. This is kind of just a base coat. Always remember to check under the chin, it's quite easy to miss that. You can leave gaps in between the fingers if you like, but I think because we're using a wash, that should be good enough to create a nice shadow between each finger to give some definition. I'm going to leave any metal till last, so I won't worry about the metal on the gun just yet. Now I need to undercoat the webbing and pouches. I'm going to use a colour called Vallejo Dark Mud for this. So a quick question of the day of this video. If you could leave a comment below and let me know what sort of palette you use when you're painting your miniatures. I'm quite interested in that because I use this round palette here. It's basically a big circle with lots of little dimples in where I can put my paint. Makes it very easy for watering paint down, and also cleaning the paint out. It's fairly easy, just scrape it out. And in the centre I've got my water jar, which is actually a glass, I think it's from an old like curry jar or something, or a sauce jar of some kind, and that kind of sits in the middle with my water in it. But a lot of people use, you know, all kinds of different things for their palettes. Some people use like a bathroom tile or kitchen tile. Some people use a wet palette where they have kind of a tray with a sponge in, and they pour some water over it, and on top of that they have a piece of damp kitchen roll, and they put their paint on top of that, and that kind of keeps the paint at a consistent wetness, so it's kind of thinner. It's got why it's called a wet palette. It's kind of stops your paint from drying out, and you can mix it easier. A lot of people use that when they're doing larger scale models, because they like to transition the paint more smoothly, so there's not a noticeable layering effect like we're doing today. Some people use square palettes. I'm sure that there are lots of interesting palettes that people come up with. So yeah, I'd love to know what you use in the comments below. So just undercoating all the straps here, and any pouches, the backpack, etc. I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Oh, that's it. Yeah, when it comes to the actual colour for the straps, etc., some people like to have more of a green, like a darker green. Some people like it more khaki. I think it's really down to personal preference. But this colour is going to be more of a light, sort of a medium light khaki colour. Starts off looking quite green, but it will lighten quite nicely. Alright, so just check it over, see if there's anything we've missed. I think that looks okay. Last thing to undercoat is the helmet. So I normally use a colour called brown violet for the helmet, but I can't seem to find it, so today I'm going to use either Russian uniform World War II or canvas. The brown violet colour is kind of in between. I think I might go with canvas though. Give it a good shake. But yeah, as I'd say, I'd normally use brown violet. That's kind of my colour of choice. Try and keep the paint fairly smooth for the helmet, because it's a smooth surface anyway. Any lumps and bumps will show up. Got a little bubble there I need to get rid of. There we go. Try and get underneath the outer edge. Alright. Alright, so now I've dried this off, we can get on to highlighting. So I'm going to start by highlighting the cloth, and I've used Vallejo English uniform, quite fittingly. It's the perfect colour, why not? So I've got my 2-0 Red Sable Kalinsky, as I said before. I've added some water to the paint. Move my light over just a bit. Hopefully that's a bit better. So we're going to start highlighting the pockets and basically any raised areas of cloth we want to put this colour on, and we want to leave any creases in the undercoat colour. So from the knees to the groin and the inside leg, we've kind of got lines going outwards, as if the cloth's being pulled tighter at his knees, just following the natural form of the sculpt. So just going all over here. It's quite easy really. It's kind of just following the sculpt of the figure as best you can. You can kind of make it up as you go though. Just don't paint over where there's a natural fold. So I like making these tutorials. I like the fact that there's no speeding up involved in the editing. Let me know if you like that as well. I find that a lot of other tutorials on YouTube, they speed up in the interest of time, because obviously not everyone's got the time to watch a full-length video like this one, but you definitely lose some of the technique involved. Like, you can't observe the way that the brush is being handled and how the not as well, at least anyway, how each stroke is going on the model. It's nice, it's quite interesting about a study. Even myself, after watching the video back, it's kind of interesting for me to see how I'm putting the paint on. I'm painting from behind the camera here, so it's kind of less natural for me anyway, the way I'm painting at the moment, but I think it's close enough that you can still learn from it. And it's funny because when I watch it back myself, I do quite a lot of the time. I spot little mistakes that I've made that I might have seen before, if I wasn't painting behind the camera, because I'd be a bit closer to the model. But I don't think that really matters, because when you're painting a model, you're going to make little mistakes, and this it's kind of all part of the process. You want to get a natural finish, and as long as it looks good when it's finished, it doesn't really matter how you get there. So that's why I always say it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to paint over a line, have to touch something up. There's no real shame in that. Some people can be a bit embarrassed by it, but even the professionals make mistakes all the time. You can't really be perfect. So I'm going to highlight the straps now. I'm going to use Vallejo Khaki. As I mentioned before, this is kind of a khaki colour that we've got going on. So this colour is perfect for that. Also, being a full-length video, it's nice for you to be able to paint along with me, even if you're not painting the same model or even the same period that I'm painting in the video. It's kind of like just something to put on in the background, some company, you know, because it can be quite a lonely hobby really, unless you're painting in a group. You know, I certainly find doing it as a job that you know, my wife goes out to work and I'm sitting there painting miniatures by myself all day, so it's kind of, you know, I tend to have like TV shows on in the background or music, which, you know, helps. But, you know, I listen to podcasts a lot as well, just, you know, just kind of hearing people talk, because I think you can go a bit mad otherwise. There's probably no way I could sit in silence and paint models. It's just something that, you know, would be a bit weird for me, and I think it'd drive me a bit crazy. So we're doing the same thing that we did as with the cloth here, and leaving the base coat in all the creases, and putting in some of our own creases as we go, leaving a little bit extra here and there just to make it look a bit nicer, a bit more artistic. You know, you can be as creative as you like with how many lines you put in. Some painters go crazy and they have like hundreds of lines on one bit of sleeve. They just go, and, you know, they leave lots of lines, and it's kind of, it's not, you know, it's not always a realistic look, but it's a stylized look, and I'm not going to criticize anyone for doing that, because, you know, if that's what you like the look of and you think that looks cool or interesting, then, you know, there's no problem in that. It's all personal preference. Now, I understand when some people get upset when they see colours that aren't historically accurate. You know, if you paint, say, a French jacket in a very pale blue, when in reality they were quite a dark navy blue, then I understand people going, oh, that's not right. But then again, on the other hand, you know, it's creative freedom. If you want to do a slightly lighter blue than normal, you know, you can't really argue with that. But you know, if you are playing it for the historical value as well as the fun factor, then, you know, it'll kind of, it's all part of it. It's all important to get things right and have the right colours and paint the you know, paint the jacket the right tone and the right colour. Swings and roundabouts really. So I'm going to highlight the wood now with Vallejo Flat Brown. So I'm just going to do kind of horizontal sort of stripes. It doesn't have to be like uniformly straight. You know, wood grain is kind of like a bit wiggly anyway. Obviously the lines we're putting on, they're not scale accurate, because from this distance you wouldn't be able to see the lines like we're painting on at the moment, but from a modeller's perspective, it's nice to have some texture on the barrels. You can do the hair in the same colour, just because there's not too much showing, so it's not going to matter if it's the same colour really. But yeah, because it's a small scale, from a distance it would look very flat if we didn't put any texture on. It's the same with the cloth and everything really. That's why we're doing this layering effect, and that's why I mentioned that people that paint larger scale models, they kind of have it smoother because the detail is more blown up anyway, so you don't necessarily need to have a extreme stylized effect going on. So I'm going to wash over the flesh now. I'm going to use Games Workshop Agrax Earthshade. So just going to put this on, spread it all over. Now we want it to be thick enough so that the paint settles nicely in the creases. So you want to have enough definition, but you don't want it too dark so that the next colour we use is going to be very contrasting. And I'm also going to wash over the helmet in Citadel Nuln Oil from Games Workshop. This is just a nice black wash. Remember to get under that rim again. Doesn't matter if you paint over the strap. We're going to give that a second highlight anyway. Alright, so that's the end of this particular part. I'm just going to dry it off and I'll see you in a minute. And we're back. So now I'm going to highlight the cloth, and for that I'm going to use Khaki Grey. It's kind of a brownish khaki. It leans more towards brown than the khaki we used for the webbing, which was kind of leaning more towards grey, I'd say. So when we're putting this colour on, we really want to just kind of put a bit on, like not put as much on as we did before, and we really want to focus on the bits that are going to have the most light. And this is what kind of really, this is where it really gets interesting, and you can really start making the figure come to life. This second highlight is kind of what brings the figure to the next level. So this is where you want to put most of your attention really. It's good to have a good foundation, a good base coat and neat first highlight, but I think the real decision making and artistry kind of comes in at this point, because you've really got to decide how much do I put on, how much of the first highlight do I leave, those sort of things. Do I keep pushing it and putting more on, or do I hold back and not put as much on? And those decisions kind of come naturally over time. The more experience you get, the more you'll kind of get used to it, and you won't really think about it as much. It's good to look at other people's work as well, because I find that you know, observing pictures online of other painters that I like kind of really helps me think about trying something new, or a new sort of highlighting style, or putting the paint in different areas that I would normally do. But the real, you know, the best thing to do is actually have someone else's figure like in person with you, because then you can sort of really look at it, and it can, like, you can really understand it better. You know, it's one thing just looking at a 2D picture, but being able to rotate something in your hand is kind of the real key aspect of how to improve your painting. So I'm going to highlight the webbing now with light mud. So this is quite a bit lighter. You know, you may want, if you don't want it to be as contrasting as this, it will dry slightly darker, but if you want it to be less contrasting, just mix a little bit of khaki in with it, and then you'll get a nice, more, you know, a bit more of a subtle look to it. But I actually quite like, you know, a bit more contrast. You know, I can put it on the corners a bit more, and kind of just put less on so it's a bit more eye-catching from a distance. You know, you've got to be a bit daring sometimes and have a little bit more contrast than what you're used to. You know, you've got to be kind of a bit confident and in the way you're putting your brush strokes, but always know that, you know, every brush stroke is not final. You can always correct it, you can always go back and dull it down or lighten it up. You know, it's kind of, it's, you know, it's not like writing in pen on a page where you can't, you know, you can't erase it. It's more like, you know, doing everything in pencil and being able to just rub it out and start again, or just draw over it. Alright, excellent. I'm going to highlight the flesh now. I'm going to have to give the flesh 2 highlights, so hopefully this will dry in a suitable time. Not going to be putting it on that thick, so probably won't have to worry too much. So as you can see, highlighting each finger individually. At the moment, just doing them as one solid line for each. But on the next highlight, we'll dot some knuckles on and make them look a bit less solid. Same for the face, really. I always start with the nose and then the chin. It's kind of a habit, really. There's no real set way to start off, but I kind of like starting in the centre and then filling it outwards afterwards. So it starts off looking a little meh to begin with, and you might have seen I put a little bit of paint on the collar there, so I'll just go and touch that up. But it will slowly come to life. With the next layers. So I'm going to highlight the wood now with Mahogany Brown. So all these colours are triads that I've come up with or I've seen other people use. There's no rule about, you know, they don't sell them in threes. You kind of just have to work with it and pick out your own colours. You don't have to use the ones that I'm using. These are just the ones that I like. I'm going to highlight the shoes next. I'm going to use black grey. This is just a nice dark grey that highlights over black quite nicely. Yeah, black's quite an important colour to highlight over. A lot of people just leave black solid as it is, but you know, black things in real life, they do still have shading to them. They do still have, you know, some depth. So you have to remember, you know, to give it a little bit of an extra bit of love. So I'm going to highlight the flesh again with flat flesh this time. So as you can see, putting less on than before. Dotting on the tips of the fingers. And on the knuckles and the thumb. And then for the face, a little bit on the nose. A little bit on the chin. A little bit on the cheek and the top lip. just using a bit of the first highlight there to go back over a little bit on the cheek. So the face is obviously going to be one of the hardest parts to get right on the model, but you know, don't stress over it too much. It's going to be a focal point on the model, so try your best. But you know, if you keep going over it and over it and over it, the layers of paint will build up and it will get, you know, more and more claggy, and the texture won't look very nice. So you know, this comes to a point where you just got to leave it. You got to say, you know, that's good enough. So I'm going to paint the lip now. This is deep maroon from Foundry. This is my my go-to lip colour. It's the only thing I use it for. That and sash highlight on Napoleonic British. So that adds a nice bit of character to the face. But now we're going to put some eyes in. I'm going to attempt to do it from behind the camera. It's kind of, you know, it's always quite tricky for me to do it from behind the camera. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. So I'm going to paint in the eye sockets using German camo black brown. This is the colour we use for the wood. I tend to use this rather than black because black is a bit more harsh and looks less natural, whereas a brown kind of, I don't know, it just kind of looks more natural and blends in with the brown that's already on the face. Yeah, that'll do. Oh yeah, before I forget, any buckles we're going to undercoat in this colour as well, because we want to paint over those in brass, and it's not going to show up unless we have a nice dark colour underneath it. Okay, oh, just knocked the camera there, sorry about that. So now it comes the actual eyes themselves. I'm just going to use off-white. Any white will do really, or ivory, whatever's your preference. Some people actually like to use light grey, but you know, I like the white, off-white. It's kind of my colour. Okay, just going to tidy that up slightly. Hopefully that stayed in focus the whole time. There we go, that'll do. Now I'm going to do the metal on the gun because we're onto the metallics now. Going to use game colour Gunmetal. And then we'll do the brass buckles. Using game colour Glorious Gold. you know, details like that kind of bring the figure to life a bit more, make it a bit more believable, a bit more interesting looking. You know, just putting in a little bit of extra effort like that makes a big difference. Now I'm going to wash over the gunmetal with Nuln oil. Hopefully it's dry enough. You know, I'd recommend leaving it a lot longer than that to dry, but it's the last thing to do, so let's be quick about that. You know, you want it to be nice and dark and dull looking. You don't want it to be shiny or anything. So you could highlight the helmet. I'm just going to leave it as it is. I quite like it to be kind of dull and flat like that. You know, I think that's nice. There we have the finished figure. Let's give it a quick rotation. If you've got any questions, like I say, leave them in the comments below. Really big thank you to our Patreon supporters. It really does help me to take the time to make these videos, because otherwise, you know, we don't really get paid for it. The adverts hardly bring in any money at all, really. So, you know, once we start getting a few more patrons, then you know, we'll just turn the adverts off completely, because there's not really much point in them being there at the moment. So yeah, no, it really does help, and we really do appreciate it. And the more patrons we get, the more videos we'll be able to make every month. So you know, I do apologise for taking a bit long on this one. The last one got corrupted, and we've been extremely busy with commissions. But you know, I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you learnt something from it. And I'll see you on the next one. If you want to check out our Facebook page, just look up Artmaster Studio on Facebook. That's generally where I post most of the pictures that we do from commission work. It's just very easy for me to put them on there, you know, rather than upload them to a website or blog or anything. But you know, so that's a really good place to keep up to date, and I'm usually on there anyway, so you can ask questions on there if you like, or in the YouTube section below. Yep, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.